Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jordan Darg, and I am the Head of Access to Finance at the Innovation Super Network. This session this morning, I'm delighted to be joined by two companies who we've been working with at the Innovation Super Network, and we're going to be talking about accessing finance and their journey in doing so. So I'm delighted to introduce this morning, I've got Elaine Parker from Safer Date. Good morning, Elaine.
Morning, Jordan.
I've got Adam Cassidy and Josh Anderson from My Pero. Good morning, guys.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, Jen.
Fantastic. So this morning we're going to be obviously talking about, the Safer Date and the Pero journey to raising investment, and really understanding from you guys what your perceptions of the access to finance support available is in the region. So I'm going to come to yourself, if you don't mind, Elaine, and if you can tell me just a little bit about, what you've learned by accessing finance in the region. What do you think, your perceptions of what's out there and the support that's has been available to you?
Yeah, sure. I think in the first instance, when I first started this journey, I had absolutely no idea how to access finance. So it was quite a daunting thing. It involves knocking on a lot of doors and being very, very resilient. And I think my first impressions were that as a sole founder in a tech business, a lot of doors are closed to you straight away. Mm-hmm. I found that some VCs didn't even want to deal with sole founder businesses, which I find crazy because nothing else mattered other than the fact it was a sole founder. Mm-hmm. But I think through networking, through talking to people, working with North, actually, I realised that there was a lot more support available than I originally thought. And that really helped me to navigate the journey. But I've certainly learned that it's a roller coaster and you've got to be resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say as well, Elaine, that it was transparent for you to be able to see the access, to finance and the support available? Was it quite hard to navigate through, or how did you connect all the dots, so to speak?
Initially, it was quite hard to navigate. I think when you've never actually done it before, it's a very difficult thing. You've got to get those links in with the right people, those right connections who know what they're doing in the finance space and raising investment. I didn't have that at first, so it was really difficult. But once I started to get the right connections and sort of, talk to the Innovation Super Network, talk to North, talk to private angel investors, and even talking to VC companies, even though I wasn't quite ready for that, helped me to really learn a lot. So I knew exactly where I needed to go and where I would be for future rounds as well.
Yeah. I think you've made a really good point there, Elaine, in terms of actually speaking to as many people as possible and even reaching out, even though you felt you weren't ready for venture capital type investment, speaking to some of those VCs, because they're also very well connected and can make those great angel introductions also. So yeah, great point there. Thanks, Elaine, for that. Okay. And Adam, I'm just going to come to yourself first, and then I'll do a follow-on question for Josh, if you don't mind. Obviously, My Pero's just gone through the first raise of investment. Tell me a little bit about what your perceptions were. Where did you go to first, and what really connected all the dots for you?
Yeah, sure. So really to echo Elaine's comment, so a first starting point for us was we were successful within Regional Innovate UK grants, and that was really opened up through connections at North Star Investments. Mm-hmm. So again, leveraging existing network within the business advisory community. Mm-hmm. And it really snowballed from there because conversations with the likes of Alex at North Star, he made us aware of the likes of North Invest. We've got contacts at Mercia and Maven, who are also managing regional funds. And again, whilst we might have been too early to be considered for those funds, they're really good at pointing us in the right direction of who else we could look to speak to. So yeah, it's really having those conversations, even though you might be a bit too early, but it's also helpful to build that relationship with those parties who could be potential investors several months or a couple of years down the line as well. So yeah, it's all community driven for us really within the Northeast.
Fantastic. And Josh, what about on sort of the investment readiness side as well? How did you guys become investor ready, and where did that support and advice come from?
Yeah, I think really leveraging our professional network. So Adam came from sort of a commercial finance background, and I came from Deloitte and P&G, so very much kind of corporate environment, working with Deloitte Ventures and that sort of thing. So the first point of call was really just to rely on our network and just really understand, okay, what do we need to do in order to kind of tick the boxes to get credible, and also to have gone through the process of getting a concept ready, making sure we have our branding, everything ready, we have our roadmap, and that people would trust in us, to take their money and make something of that.
Yeah. And you mentioned there actually, Josh, a really good point around actually, being prepared, being ready, obviously that's really important, and actually making sure that your brand was in the right position, given that this is a really brand focused business as well. I think that's really an important point that you've mentioned there. And Elaine, coming over to yourself as well, Elaine, just in terms of obviously some of the pros and cons that you've come across to raising investment, what was maybe one of the key challenges that you had when you were looking to not only get sort of the finance that you need, but actually the support to prepare?
I think one of the key challenges actually is when you're looking for investment, it is a very male dominated environment, and you find that as a sole female founder in tech, that I think some people actually still don't take you seriously, which it's crazy in this day and age. But I found that in some, not with everybody, but in some cases I did sort of find that. So that was quite a challenge. But again, not every person who provides investment is right for you. So it's about knocking on a lot of doors, but also finding the right person who will support you in your business. So I think that was a big challenge, is finding the right people to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome, Martin. It's lovely to see you. And thank you so much for joining the panel this morning as well. And we've done introductions, Martin, and we've just been discussing with Adam, Josh and Elaine, obviously, the perceptions of the current ecosystem, being able to navigate themselves around that ecosystem. Do you want to just introduce yourself, Martin, and a little bit about the work that you're doing at the NTCA?
Of course, yeah. And first of all, apologies. I was. Is it not working?
Yes, you are now.
Apologies. I was in the session. It's just I hadn't clicked on the share my video. I couldn't work out how to do that, having got into the session anyway. So I'm here now. Well, I was there, but in the background. Yes, we've been working at the North of Tyne Combined Authority on an access to finance program, which has 4 elements, and I think kind of relevant to this particular element is some work that we're going to be doing with Information Super Network and Innovation Super Network rather, and with their partners on providing a kind of ecosystem provision, which will seek to ensure that entrepreneurs and startups and scale-ups are ready for investment and can prepare their pitch, if you like, to various funds, and also to try and match them up with the right suppliers, so kind of matching up supply and demand. It's a gap in the local infrastructure that was identified through a large piece of work that we did going out and consulting with people, but was also highlighted by the Northeast LEP in the Access to Finance Finish and Task and Finish group. So there's been a number of things that have suggested that it's a gap, and it's one that we're very much hoping to fill. And that's really interesting to hear, Elaine, your experience, and we hope that we'll be able to provide quite a bit of publicity for this, essentially a service that will be available to people to enable them to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Martin.
I can tell you about the other elements, but that was the key element for this session, I think. Yeah,
it was, absolutely. And what we're going to do, Martin, is obviously we're going to finish the panel session, and you and I are going to have a bit of a fireside chat, and we're going to talk about some of those other elements which are really, really key and important, and hopefully we can address some of the points that Josh and Adam and Elaine are going to highlight as well as part of this session this morning. So thanks for that, Martin. That's excellent. So Adam, coming back to yourself, obviously I asked Elaine about maybe some of those key challenges and those barriers to accessing capital and support in the region. What was the main challenge that you needed to overcome, as part of your journey to raising investment?
Yeah, sure. So probably it's actually really 2 key challenges that we faced. The first one was around timing. So we mentioned earlier on that we were successful with Innovate UK, and we were notified of that in November 2021. And the typical timing is 3 months to secure the match funding that is required. So with that landing in November, it then meant we had to juggle Christmas. And yes, so starting from our funding journey, scratch in November, we needed to get our documents ready, the pitch deck, business plan, model, make sure we were lined up with heads of terms and from a legal compliance perspective, SAIS. So we had 3 months to do all that, as well as get investment on board. So that was challenging, but thankfully through the network, again, through North Invest, you've got the potential to really pitch to a large pool of angel investors who we really wanted to target. So that did help mitigate that. And then secondly, with COVID, a big thing for me and Josh is building relationships with potential investors as well. And doing that over a screen isn't the easiest. When you're around a table, you can have a coffee, much more chat and build that relationship with the investor. So that was a bit of a constraint for us, but equally it did enable us to meet with quite a lot of investors rather than having that travel time around to hold those meetings as well.
Mm-hmm. And you also highlighted there as well, Adam, a really good point around actually the timeline of your investment and the time of year you were going out to raise investment. Because it was the end of year, sometimes people see December being a bit of a dead month. Are these things that, other entrepreneurs should be considering as part of their journey to raising funds, looking at the time of year they're actually going out, maybe working back over to set a timeline?
I think absolutely, yeah. We completed the round in 3 months, which is quite fast. Typically 5, 6, maybe even more, longer period of time is required. So certainly keep that in mind. One aspect which potentially works in our favour is we were able to complete the round within the financial year, so ending March, which is important for a lot of investors. And I mentioned SAIS earlier on, and that was key for our investment round. It's got such key tax benefits to angel investors. So we needed to make sure not only did we meet Innovate's timings, but that we could complete the round in a timely manner for our investors to benefit from those reliefs in the current year.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adam, for that. And Josh, really just expanding on this a little bit further. Obviously, we've highlighted there some of the challenges that, Adam really felt within the organisation. Obviously, you were probably both doing different roles in actually, working towards raising that investment. What sort of challenges did you specifically see, that you were facing, particularly from a founder?
No, of course. Well, I mean, obviously with Adam coming from a sort of corporate finance background, like his view is, around all those challenges, whereas I'm more of a product person. So I was really thinking about, okay, well, when are we ready to go and get investment? I wanted to do as much as we could, self-funded off our own backs, just me and Adam kind of in the room developing that with our users. And so for me, the main challenge was like when to hit the button. And I think leaving full-time employment was one of those. It just got to the point where we were both just working evenings, weekends, and we didn't have enough time to keep up with what we were doing. And the second was then, actually, it was 2 weeks after I quit full-time employment, was getting the Innovate UK grant. So the timing worked really well. And I think you just have to look out for those indicators that you're kind of ready to do this. We were at the point where we needed to put serious investment behind the product and bring some other people on board, and we'd taken it as far as we kind of wanted to and hit all those milestones. So I think, thinking both on the sort of commercial finance readiness and that was kind of Adam's side of things. Then for me, when's the product ready? And you want to go out to people with something exciting and something that they really feel they can, their money is going towards actually propelling this thing forward and taking it to market.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh, and you've hit the nail on the head again there with regards to, obviously, there is the part where you're looking at the commercial part of actually raising investment, but it's about making sure the foundation to the business and actually ultimately the product and this investment readiness support and this investment, support that comes outside of the actual raising the money is so important.
Exactly, and it never stops, right? Because we've raised our first round, and that will get us to the point where we've got something that's kind of manufacture ready. Then we need to pump all the money into actually manufacturing and shipping the products. That's probably another investment round, and you always need to think about, what have I done since the last investment round? Well, we've gained X many followers on our social media, we've gained X many pre-orders, we've taken the product from prototype through to commercial readiness. What are those kind of milestones that you need to hit to basically get ready for each investment round? So I think it's super important.
Absolutely. And we've obviously just talked about the challenge there, but I actually now want to go on to the sort of the type of investment as well and the type of finance that was available. So obviously, we often hear in the region that, there's limited capital available, there's limited types of sources of finance as well. And Elaine, coming to you first, tell me about obviously the type of investment that you brought into the business and why that was a source of finance that you wanted to go for over anything else. Was it due to the availability? Was it just that type of finance worked better for you as a founder? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Every bit of investment that we've had in is through private angel investors. I know there are some grant funds out there that are available, but that process is very elongated. And when you're in a software company and you're moving things forward quickly, that just seems like a long time. And plus, with the business that I'm doing, it's very, very purpose-led. I've got a very personal story behind it. I'm actually taking on a huge industry to make things better for people. And, that story and being able to actually sit and talk to investors rather than just fill out a form, was something that I found worked for me as a business.
Absolutely. And so obviously there was all equity that you took on. And obviously you mentioned as well the support that you had from the Women Angels of the North Syndicate as well. Was it important for you to have women investing in your company as well?
Yeah, actually it is. It's all about having the right people by your side. And as I've mentioned before, it is a very male-driven sort of industry when you're looking for finance. It's just the way it is. But when I sort of first started working with Frontier North and, seeing just and talking to other female entrepreneurs, people who'd been there, it did really help.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Elaine. And Josh, Adam, you both mentioned obviously the Regional Angel Investment Accelerator funding that you guys have received. Tell me why that was important for you and how that helped leverage further finance for you as well.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of why that grant funding was important for us is because of the nature of the product that we're developing. It's very capital intensive to really develop the technology from scratch. That requires significant investment. So were we not to receive the grant funding through the Innovate Award, it would have added more challenges in terms of the quantum that we would need to raise from private investors. And then that also impacts the level of dilution that we would have to go through as well. So those are primarily two reasons why we really chose to pursue the grant funding. Because at the end of the day, it's free money. Yes, you need to meet the requirements that you set out in your application. But for us, it would have been crazy not to at least try, because you also receive really helpful feedback. It goes through such a rigorous process. So it's challenging. It challenges your thoughts, ideas. And if you're successful, then it's free money, which can really help propel your business.
Yeah,
it's a massive stamp of approval as well, right? So once you get your kind of Innovate UK stamp, that gives you a springboard to go off and raise off the back of that. We more than doubled our match funding, and I think that was initially down to that kind of, oh wow, you guys actually done something pretty good here, and then we then took those conversations further, and we raised double what we needed to. So I think it's something to be said about those sorts of stamps of credibility, or something that really gives you something behind your business at an early stage.
It does, absolutely. And I think it's really important that we continue to have the likes of the Regional Angel Investment Accelerator programs here in the Northeast, particularly because, as you say, it certainly helps you leverage that further additional finance that you need. And it also gives investors confidence by going through that vigorous due diligence process, project finance process. Yes, it was timely for your business, but ultimately, I know obviously a couple of investors who invested in your business and who I think that give real credibility and confidence too, for sure, as well. Okay. Yeah. In terms of obviously the next question that I'd like to come on to, guys, if you don't mind, is obviously, talking about the investor side of things. How did you plan to approach investors, and what was the real support mechanism for you being able to attract those investors? And was it a priority for you to get the right investors? And if so, what did you want to see in those investors? I know that's a bit of a long question, so I will prompt if there's anything gets missing. So Elaine, I'll come to you first, if you don't mind.
Yes, that was quite a long question, Jordan. Firstly, it is definitely important to have the right investors. I've had some people offer me a lot of money to put into this business that I've actually turned down, because they just weren't the right person. I foresaw problems. My gut told me that actually if I took this person on, that there'd be a lot of issues down the line. So it's a hard decision to say no to $250,000, $500,000 when you need it. But actually, if that's going to cause you a world of pain later, it's you've just got to go with your gut. I think that's really, really important. And remind me about some of the bits of that question, Jordan.
How you located those investors?
Locating them, I use my network a lot. So the power of LinkedIn in the Northeast community, I found so beneficial. It actually still amazes me just how many fabulous people we've got in the Northeast. You can put out a tweet and then that can just go, sorry, not a tweet, like a post on LinkedIn. And then the community actually wants to help you. It's full of people who, if they're either they've done what you're doing, they've been in your shoes, or they know somebody who can help you. And with my business, I had offers of, free legal support, for all sorts while I got going. But it also helped me to put somebody on the board and then introduce me to this network of angel investors, and also yourself, Jordan. So it was all about that networking in the Northeast, talking to people, like-minded individuals, and the Northeast community is there and they do want to help you. I think that's a great thing about the Northeast, want to see other businesses succeed. It's not cutthroat. It's literally, helping people with what they need. And that was really important to me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Elaine. Everybody wants to collaborate and support. And I guess also that's really helped you on your second round of funding as well, being able to use that second round of funding, which you're just about to close as well.
Yeah, that's right. It absolutely has. Yeah, it's a lot of the investors from the first round have come in again with the second round, and then word of mouth, more people now want to be involved. So yeah.
Fantastic, Elaine. And Adam, Josh, the same question to you, really. Obviously, how you went and located those investors. Obviously, you mentioned how Raya helped you do that. And how important is it for you to have the right investors in the business as well?
Yeah, sure. From mine and Josh's perspective, a key term that we continually used was smart equity. And this goes back to Elaine's point of making sure we've got the right people. So for us, we really wanted investors that were going to be passionate about what we were doing and our mission. So really trying to identify people who are experienced within the sector that may be investors, or those who have also invested in similar type of businesses, form part of our desktop research exercise. So looking at press releases of other investment rounds that have completed within the pet tech space. And alongside that, just our existing network. So having conversations with angel investors who we'd be keen to work with and bring on board, having an initial positive conversation, bringing them on as investor often led to them introducing us to their network. So again, it's that community feel, and each conversation we had that resulted in investment often in them resulted in them introducing us to another investor who's within their network. So it kind of just snowballed from initial conversations, really.
Yeah, it's really important, as I say. Obviously, most of the investment that we were able to help locate was through the Newcastle Angel Hub, which is obviously a collaboration between North Invest and the Innovation Super Network in doing so. And that is the power of an angel hub and a network like the Newcastle Angel Hub, because what that allows you to do is to spiral those conversations. We work really closely with North Star, who obviously introduced this opportunity to us as well. And obviously, as you mentioned as well, just doing some real great desktop research also helps you find sector-specific investors as well. And I do think, touching on what Elaine's just mentioned there and that you've just mentioned, Adam, I think we are starting to build a really good ecosystem here in the Northeast, and you can already see there's some fundamental players in developing that ecosystem. And obviously I'm going to be talking to Martin a little bit more about this after the panel session. But guys, obviously it's been absolutely fantastic having you here today with me. I'm so delighted to have met you guys really early on in your process, and to have worked with you guys, and obviously you had some real successful outcomes. Obviously I'm an investor in both businesses, so I'll be watching with a personal eye, but I'll also be watching with my Innovation Super Network hat on also, to make sure that we can continue to support you through your journey to help you get to that point where your businesses are well established, and help you all the way through. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate taking obviously some time out of your day as well, but hopefully you've been able to showcase to the audience today that actually we are starting to make things happen here in the Northeast, and there is also a lot of support and available for any of the entrepreneurs who are looking to raise investment at this moment in time. So thank you once again, guys.
Thanks, Jordan.
No worries. Thanks, Jordan.
So Martin, hello again. And obviously you got to hear from some of the, most active organisations here in the Northeast in terms of how they've gone on to raise investment. And obviously, it's all, as you mentioned, it's all about developing this ecosystem, Martin. And I think it'll be really good if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about some of the projects that you are looking at specifically, perhaps starting off with the ecosystem mapping project.
Yeah, indeed. So the aim of the ecosystem, as we said, was to match supply and demand. And as I say, that was established through the work that we had done, going out and listening to people. It was a clear gap in the local provision. So we're currently in discussions with Innovation Super Network about how we're going to mobilise that. And they've brought on board a number of key partners. They've come up with some very strong suggestions about how that service might be delivered, including peer-to-peer support and also kind of workshop seminar type interventions to bring people together, and so that I guess collectively we can learn and become more fluent in the kind of finance area and understand the options that are available. We know that there's wariness. There's always wariness about sharing equity. There's always wariness about debt. But as part of our program in the Northeast and in the North of Tyne specifically, we're very committed to trying to ensure that those entrepreneurs with innovative ideas looking at startups are going to be able to secure the finance that they need to do that. And equally so, as Elaine suggested, at the point where you're wishing to then grow your business, expand it further, that there will be the later stage finance available to support those developments too.
Absolutely. And I guess as well, obviously, Martin, there's obviously a real specific focus, obviously, on digital sectors. And obviously, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the North of Tyne project specifically for digital clusters that's currently running with Innovation Super Network?
Yeah, so, well, it's worth saying that, we've identified a 10 million allocation for investment in a venture fund, and that will be targeted at our growth sectors, and of which, of course, digital is a key part. There are, of course, crossovers with some of our other growth sectors because, digital isn't just an entity in itself, but cuts across all elements of the economy. So that they could well be relationships with the kind of health and aging economy activities, and indeed even the digital program has partners with the academic and health science network. So we're looking at relationships between the different parts of the economy. There is also the offshore renewable energy, which is a key growth sector, and of course, the digital economy will overlap with the energy sector and with those kind of developments there. And just to round it off, because obviously Northumberland's in our patch, we have an emphasis on the kind of rural economy and on culture and tourism. But even in that context, we've seen projects coming up, not least through the Rural Design Centre, that are identifying digital enterprise as one of the areas that they're looking to pursue. Going back specifically to the digital ecosystem, well, we're doing a number of different things, as people might be aware. We are trying to create a clear narrative for the digital sector in the North of Tyne. We're looking at generating peer-to-peer support. We're looking at increasing employability options to attract people with the right skill set into the patch. And we're working obviously with our partners, at the Tees Valley Northeast. What's it called again? Catalyst. Who are trying to help to coordinate that broader ecosystem program. I don't know whether you want to add to that, Jordan.
No, No, absolutely, and I guess I think for me, I think it's, as well, being able to understand like the ambition around the impact that this is really going to have as well on, obviously, the early stage innovation environment. Obviously, there's so many elements that you are really working on. What would you like the overall result of this to be?
Well, that's reminded me about one of the other objectives of the digital program is to create clusters, obviously, and to, that whole idea that, kind of by creating clusters, you get a kind of synergy from people being able to connect and develop joint projects. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's worth noting that many of the projects that we hope will be supported through the venture fund will be university spin-outs or spin-ins, drawing upon our regional expertise, not least at the National Innovation Centre for Data. Mm-hmm. What do we want to achieve? Well, our primary objective is to increase the number of businesses and to increase the number of jobs in the North of Tyne. That's what we're going to be judged on, and that's what our Gateway review will be testing out, how successful we have been at achieving those kind of objectives. It's worth saying that we also, as a combined authority, are fairly unique in that right from the outset, we have identified a priority to ensure that our growth is inclusive. And so we're wanting to ensure that it is actually, and it's leveling up the inequality within our locality and providing opportunities for those who kind of struggling to secure work, to gain work in an area where they are able to develop new skills and flourish and indeed, progress through that employment. And so that is a key commitment that the combined authority has. It's not just to grow the economy, but to ensure that it's also inclusive. So far as the venture fund that we've currently put out to tender, we're holding clarification meetings with people who are interested in pitching to be the fund manager for that fund. We've allocated 10 million, but it will only actually start to invest when it reaches 40 million. We've kind of given a criteria that the fund manager must raise an additional 30 million to put alongside our 10 million. And of course, on a deal by deal basis, that could also lever in significantly more investment. So, and ultimately, the aim potentially at a second close would be to grow that fund to 100 million. So we're hoping that our investment will be on the ratio of 1 to 9 in terms of the overall fund that we will create. So that's an exciting area that we will be mobilizing by the end of the year, if all goes to plan. I'm not underestimating the legal complexity of delivering that, but we're working with our we've got independent legal support to try and ensure that that is developed.
And just in terms of that fund as well, obviously that you're looking to further develop, specifically what type of organizations will benefit from that funding, and obviously who's it specifically aimed at? It's
specifically aimed at SMEs. It would be at startup, but also certainly at early stage development as well. Mm-hmm. So it's it's kind of at the bottom. It's at the area of the economy where we believe there have been gaps. That once you reach kind of a certain size, we believe that there is the availability of finance. But of course, it will be a local fund. It'll be a fund for investing within this local economy. We cannot guarantee that our co-investors will be similarly geographically restricted, but if it's our money that's levered in the additional investment, then we will ensure that it is delivered in the area.
Well, absolutely. And I guess obviously co-investors without restrictions is so important, in our drive to actually bring capital here into the Northeast, and specific types of capital. I think, one of the key elements that's been highlighted in previous conversations is, yes, we can obviously support, we're starting to build up an ecosystem to develop and support the early stage innovation and finance element, but actually we've got companies here who are established in the region but need to scale up capital, need that multiple rounds of millions to actually take them further. And I guess obviously this is one of the key areas that you would want to develop the fund into, and obviously make sure that we're attracting the right national investors or international investors in doing that, and by being able to put, what's the saying, put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, here in obviously the North of Tyne region. Doing that will hopefully showcase that further.
Absolutely. I mean, the aspiration, as I've said, is for the fund to grow. At the point at which it becomes, 100 million, then we would be in a position certainly for the fund to invest in bigger scale up programs.
Absolutely. You mentioned also, Martin, previously about obviously that levelling up agenda, and I think obviously this is a real key topic for many people at the moment, and particularly looking at obviously levelling up when it comes to access to finance as well. Can you just give us a little bit more of an overview in terms of obviously the plans that have been put in place that you can see, in addition to the four elements that you've discussed here this morning, and actually
well, I haven't covered all four elements yet, but indeed, the next element that I would talk about is our social finance fund. So it's a smaller fund. We've had an allocation of 4 million from Cabinet to develop a social finance fund, which will be targeted at what we're describing as socially trading organisations. That would include things like social enterprises, co-ops, community ownership businesses. But it would also include kind of more mainstream businesses with a social or environmental agenda. That's the key defining factor. Those for whom the bottom line isn't the essential motivation. Those whose motivation is to do something to tackle some of the societal and environmental problems that we have. And on that, we've been working with Power to Change, which some of you may have come across. And once again, the aim would be to bring about a strategic partnership of a range of social finance funds, so that our 4 million could be good lever in additional investment from other key players. So we've been talking with both regional funds and national funds who have an interest in this area. We launched a call for evidence. We had a very successful response to that call for evidence, a great deal of enthusiasm from both those involved in infrastructure support and the socially trading organisations themselves. It's fair to say that the Northeast is underserved in relation to social enterprise, and we're hoping that this programme will remedy that. But that will give people who are potentially building up businesses in who are trying to tackle issues in more socially deprived parts of our region, the opportunity to seek appropriate finance to again develop and grow.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, and I think that that is becoming more and more paramount on a lot of agendas. And again, obviously, being able to make those ecosystem connections with national-based investors who can concentrate on those areas is absolutely the right thing to do as well. And I'm conscious of questions actually coming from the audience. Martin, it's actually a gentleman called Ian Brown. I have an established software business and I'm now just looking to bring in investment. At the start of that journey and getting started is my biggest problem. How do I engage with appropriate angel investors, and can you facilitate or signpost? So yeah, absolutely, Ian. And please do email me at the Innovation Super Network, and I will definitely have a chat with you, see where you are in terms of your journey, and see how we can help signpost, guide and support you through those barriers, and hopefully get to a point where we can introduce you to angel investors and signpost you in the right direction, Ian. So yes, thank you very much for that. Martin, conscious of time, obviously, is there anything further that you would like to add in terms of what the North of Tyne Combined Authority is doing?
Yes, just one additional thing, which actually is it was a fairly small part of the program, but has now suddenly become very, very significant. So right from the outset, we were responding to the Mayor's Jamie Driscoll's aspiration for recycling regional wealth, and we looked at various ways of doing that, including the development of a regional mutual bank. The work on that has been put on the hold for the time being, not least because of the kind of context and the experience of others who tried to do that elsewhere. But what we have looked at is how we might look to invest a small portion of the funds that are held by institutions and also by high net worth individuals. But just focusing on the institutions for a moment, we've engaged with a national think tank called Impact Investing, who've done a lot of work on trying to work out ways in which pension funds can prudently invest in the local economy for impact, whilst at the same time honouring their kind of fiduciary responsibilities. They've done some excellent work, and we're going to be working with them in the coming months to engage with the regional public sector pension funds in the first instance, to look at ways in which we might be able to develop a fund that their trustees consider to be viable. Now, we were doing this all unaware of the fact that that Impact Investing were also lobbying government to try to ensure that that principle was embedded in the Levelling Up Act. And indeed, it is there. We were hoping for about a 1 to 2% allocation regionally, and government has suggested that public sector pension funds should look at a 5% target. Now, that would, all our other interventions would be peanuts in comparison to the amount of investment that would release.
Absolutely.
So we felt like we'd won the lottery. And I'm really excited to be picking up on that now that we're getting close to the launching the venture fund, and we've made progress on the social finance fund. I'm really excited to be picking that piece of work up, and we're working out how we can release some of that value into the local economy.
Absolutely, Martin. I think, as you say, when you bring all these elements together in terms of what's been worked upon here, and actually, what's obviously happening in the North of Tyne specifically, there is so much here in terms of actually not only what you guys are offering, but what this can actually bring further into the ecosystem. And as I said earlier, it's about showcasing, the work that's gone into bringing finance to SMEs and into the region, and actually how that can then start to open up the eyes of co-investors as well, to then start to obviously showcase and further support what the combined authority is doing. So there's some really exciting stuff, and there's some fantastic initiatives there that will, hopefully feed the appetite of the majority of the SMEs, and hopefully bring more companies to the North of Tyne, and indeed help sustain some of the companies and retain them here in the region and help them grow further, Martin. So I do really appreciate you coming on this morning and talking through some of those elements and those initiatives. Obviously, I'm sure, people will start to see, obviously, that filtering through and start to hopefully see the impact of that very quickly. So thank you so much, Martin. Delighted that you were able to join us. And thank you so much for clearly articulating what you guys are doing as well. And a huge thank you as well to our entrepreneurs, Adam, Josh and Elaine, who joined us as well. It's great to see companies like these guys obviously forming here in the region, remaining in the region, and being able to access absolutely all of the capital that was necessary to take their companies forward, and also the ability to lean on and also get real good guidance through the process from Innovation Super Network, the Newcastle Angel Hub, and other parties here in the region as well. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me. Compelling stories, and a huge well done. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much, Jordan.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, Jordan.
Yeah.